Welcome, everyone. This is Jean Boystard with an episode of Courageous Creative Conquerors. And I'm here today with Kaecey McCormick. And I'm just delighted to be here with her. We are kindred spirits, and she's going to be sharing some tips and techniques about how to break through blocks in the expressive arts, whether it's visual arts, poetry, writing. She's an author. She's just multi-talented and has a lot to share with us today. Welcome, Kaecey. I'm so happy to see you here.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah.
So let's just start off by allowing you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you are a courageous creative conqueror.
So I am primarily a writer. That is what I do for a living. That is my day job as well as my passion. And I write freelance. I do a lot of medical and technical writing. Right now, I was doing a lot of marketing writing, but I switched to something that was a little easier for me, that was less creative and more technical focused, so I could save my creative energy for my other writing. So I write poetry, I write fiction and creative nonfiction, and I also love to do visual arts. And I used to joke that I'm a creativity junkie because I'll try anything and do any sort of creative activity at least once to see if I like it and to see how it goes. I also love helping other people ignite their creativity. So I lead workshops, classes, and do those kinds of things to help people get in touch with their creative well that I think we all have inside us, and sometimes just need a little bit of help and encouragement accessing. In terms of being a courageous creative conqueror, I think I've had many different opportunities throughout my life to use creativity to overcome challenges. And I like to think that whenever I have a challenge, I rely on creativity to help me get through it. And that's something I think I did when I was little, starting from a very young age, but have really consciously and mindfully now do as an adult. So that's me in a nutshell.
So Kaecey, what are your first memories of being creative? I know for me, I have memories of childhood experiences that led me to be a creative person. Was there anybody in your life that really inspired you?
Yeah, so I've been inspired by many people throughout my life, but my first memories, going back as far as I can remember, I have just been living inside a story inside my head, and I make up things constantly. As a small child, I had a make-believe friend, an imaginary friend, and I would spin all sorts of stories with this imaginary friend. My sister was 1 year younger than me, and so she was my number one audience and critic with my stories, starting at a young age. And I would, memorize little verses and poems and put on little performances, and we would do things together. And but our main way I was creative at a very young age, other than doing sort of typical arts and crafts stuff, was we would wander into the woods behind our house, and I would just start with stories and tell stories about all sorts of fairy tales. And that continued, me being, at recess in grammar school, the one who would gather, the circle around and say, here's the story for today. And we would sometimes act it out over weeks. Sometimes it was just a day, but we would get into character and have mysteries to solve and things like that.
I see. So it seems that you were really a creative person as a child and destined to lead others to be expressive and creative with the arts. So what would you tell someone who was feeling blocked? Maybe they approached you and said, can you please help me? I'm stuck. I can't write, or I can't draw or paint or express myself creatively. What would you tell that person? And do you have some activities or techniques to share? We would love to hear those.
It really is an individualized approach. So generally speaking, we'd have a pretty good conversation about what's going on. Oftentimes when someone's feeling blocked creatively, it's something going on in their life that is causing them to be, they're not even aware that they're focusing on that. And it's sort of creating this wall. And so we do different activities. A lot of times I will have you just change gears. So if you are trying to write a book and you can't do it, I'll have you try something that's differently, creative in a different way, just to kind of, I like to call it exercising, cross training that creative muscle. So, it's like you could do bicep curls all day long and you might get really big biceps, but your other muscles are going to get weaker if you don't train them all. So it's the same with creativity. I think you don't have to become an expert, but being willing to try something new and look at things differently, I think helps. So that's one of the primary ways we get started. And then depending on what the needs are and how things are going, I have lots of different activities. Even if you're not a writer, I find that journaling is really a strong tool, a very good tool to use to help start your creative and journey and to keep you going. Some people who they think they don't like writing, get really nervous about writing in a journal. So we do a lot of exercises that are fun, that are guided, that help you so that you're not just staring at a blank page. And frequently I find that if somebody is feeling blocked or overwhelmed, narrowing that field down and giving a very specific format and time really helps. So if you only have 5 minutes to write a poem in a very specific format, you just go and you don't have time to think. And so that shuts off that critic, that part of you that's nervous or maybe you're not even aware of, and you just produce. And once people start producing, it tends to sort of snowball from there.
I really love how you're able to think of activities for people to do, whether they have a small amount of time or they have a lot of time to work with. You're very adaptable and have a lot of techniques. Did you learn all of this through training or in school, in your degree, or how did you come up with all this? Or did you just come out of your head? You just came up with these ideas because you're so creative?
So, my background is I have undergraduate degrees in anthropology. I have a Bachelor of Arts in anthropology. I have a Bachelor of Science in psychology and neuropsychology.
Okay.
And so I like to joke that, my writing, I first studied people and how they are together socially and culturally. And then I wanted to learn about how the mind works. And then I like to write about all these things with people. So that's sort of my ongoing joke. I'm just fascinated with how we work and think. But that feeds into these exercises. They're not usually things I learned as part of my formal education because I didn't study art formally in that way. I've taken art classes, but I didn't earn a degree in art. And an MFA, you're really focused on your own writing. That being said, I am a big researcher and I read voraciously. I read a lot.
So Kaecey, I know you, and I know that you are quite the researcher. You're a freelance writer, and you have your master's in fine arts in writing. And also I know that you are very good at synthesizing and bringing things together, finding all this information and materials to help people. And I also see behind you that you have a bookshelf with lots of books, but I would suspect that you have a lot more in some of the other rooms. Is that right? Because I know that you love to read and discover answers to problems.
It's massive. Not to mention my Kindle, but I have always read a lot. And I think what happens is I synthesize, and I think that that's what I actually help people the most with is bringing together lots of information from different sources. And I like to present it in a way, like, again, very tailored to who I'm speaking with. And so a lot of the exercises, some are, sometimes I know I might have seen something similar somewhere, or I saw 3 things I liked and I mesh them together and come up with something. Sometimes they just come to me actually frequently. A lot of what I do is I call myself a slow learner. So, I have to do things the hard way. And if I kind of get through and I go, oh, this really helped, then I want to help people and, get there faster by sharing what I learned. So depending on the exercise, it depends on where it came from, but I'd say it's a mixture of all of what you said.
Do you help people of all ages and all different lifestyles and groups of people?
I have worked with, so when I was served as poet laureate for my city, which is Cupertino. I did programs from, I think we started with preschool and all the way up to at the senior center. And I love working with all ages. I primarily work with adults. That sort of has turned into that. I used to do a lot more work with children when my girls were younger. But now I work primarily with adults, but I really do enjoy working with people of all ages.
You mentioned that you are a poet laureate, or that you were the poet laureate. That was in the news recently because of the inauguration. And I think people got a kind of a good idea of what that is. But I think maybe we'd like to hear a little bit more of what that is. Could you explain that to us?
It really depends on your municipality, what that will look like. Typically, the poet laureate is charged with sort of helping people celebrate poetry and sort of bringing it out into our culture and raising awareness. So if there's an event, you might be asked to read a poem like we saw at the inauguration. Poets play a large role in that. I think because poets record the emotional resonance of what's going on in the world.
Wow, I love what you just said, that poets record the emotional resonance of what's going on in the world. I love that. What a beautiful quote. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I do. I
True.
think that's what it is. And so in different places, people do being a poet laureate differently. Traditionally, again, it's sort of being, present in the public, being present in the community at different community events. In my case, I did a lot of workshops. I did community poetry and prose nights. I did multilingual nights. And one of the things I'm really proud of is, and I did that in addition to, reading at a monument unveiling and things like that. One of the things I'm really proud of is that typically at the end of the poet laureate's term here, we have a contest. I wanted everyone's voice to be heard and not just the winners. So I put together an anthology, a community anthology, and I thought I would get maybe, 20, 20 poems in there or something. Well, I had I forget the exact number now, but it's something like 85 people were in the book, and it's hundreds of pages long.
Wow.
We were going to do a dedication at the library, but COVID hit, so it's on hold. We'll do a dedication at the library with the celebration with people reading. And at the end, at the celebration to launch the book, we had 150 people from the community and come and really celebrate in community and together and celebrate what poetry can do. And it brought all these people together and forever now in a book.
It's so beautiful what you did, Kaecey. It's so wonderful. And could you just touch on that a little bit? What does this mean to you as a visual artist, as a writer, author, poet laureate that you were? What can you tell us about this time that we're living in right now and why the arts are so important?
It is a very challenging time. And, as part of that, I'll just maybe give an example. When we first went into lockdown or shelter in place here, so I had just ended my term as poet laureate, and so many people reached out and were feeling like they were floating and untethered and had all of these emotions and didn't know what to do with them. And I think that that's what's going on, right? We have so much going on even in the world, but even in our country, even in our state, where we're both in California, and, so much going on and so many emotions and people losing people or not being able to say goodbye and having these really heart-wrenching situations come up. I think the expressive arts helps us face those emotions, which sometimes we try to push away with maybe less than healthy coping mechanisms. It helps us sort of face them, accept them, own them, and then put them out so we don't have to carry them. I always say, the universe is so big, you can give it up, you don't have to carry it all. And I think the expressive arts helps us do that. So whatever your chosen medium is, it is a way of tapping into that. And I think it's also a way of tapping into that collective that we all are a part of. And when we share something out into the world, you never know who's going to take it in and listen, read it, happen upon it. It may just be a small thing, you may never know, but it can change the course of someone's day or week or even life. I've had, funny conversations with people where I say, you said this to me, and I thought about it for the next 5 years and
Right.
have no recollection. So you just never know. But I think that that's really the role that the arts play is helping us make sense emotionally of what's going on, and also to help others who maybe aren't capable of expressing in that same way, get a taste of a different perspective or angle of the same issue.
Yes, yes, and sometimes it can be very subconscious. We're not aware of how much the visual and auditory and expressive arts are affecting us and how important they are in our lives. Maybe we turn on the music when we're feeling low, or we watch a gory thriller movie when we're angry or we have some pain inside. We don't even know what we're doing. Why do we do these things? Because we're blocked. And the expressive arts, whether it be video production, theater, music, art, photography, whatever it is, it gives us permission to feel. It gives us permission to express ourselves, any kind of emotion that's stuck. So I know that you are a visual artist, and I would love for you to share some of your artwork and how that helps you and others express themselves.
Sure. So this one, this is a practice I do where if I don't know what to write, like we were talking about being blocked, then I write what someone else said and I just illustrate it. This is an exercise I did where I take a value, I go through and I actually think about my top values, and I have a little activity that I do, and then I write it out, and then I just, again, illustrate or do whatever comes up. I don't try to do something with it. I just let it happen. And this was actually very simple. You can see it was just, I actually just painted, I had a background and I cut these out that I had done on another piece of paper. And then I journaled around it. So I don't actually remember what I wrote on there, to be honest with you.
So Kaecey, I know that you are a very busy person, very active person. Besides being the poet laureate that you also were a mother, an RA mother, you have children, you're a freelance writer and author, you teach others with workshops, you're an artist, you meditate daily, you do research. So how do you juggle all this and work with this as well as finding that quiet time to be creative? How do you do that? I know there's a lot of people out there that say, I just don't have the time.
It's funny. One of I remember listening to someone recently, not too recently, but within the last couple of years, talking about everyone having a genius zone. And I think when we hear that, like I felt like I don't have a genius zone. I don't know what that means. And she explained it to be that your genius zone is something that you don't even think about that you do well, that other people struggle with. And mine, I think, is managing my time. I am busy, but I have my brain just naturally organizes. And if it's important to me, I in my head, I somehow fit it in. So I do have a practice. And I think that that's where this comes in. And my practice is that I set aside time every day for myself as a priority. And that includes meditation, exercise, and expression. And so this is part of my expression. And so I do regular journaling, I do practice writing, and I do art journaling as part of that. So that's where that comes in. I might, do one or two a day, and then I fill the page as I go, that I'm doing something every day. And again, this came from, I believe there's a book about art journaling. There's many books about art journaling, but there's a couple that I read and I combined different ideas into doing this for myself. And that was when I'm really busy and I have nothing else that I can fit in, I just do a word of the day, a color, a pattern, and the weather. And that's all I do. And that's like the minimum that I would do.
It reminds me of my mother when she was talking on the phone to someone for a long time. She would be doodling all over, doing all these really amazing designs. And I love to look at them later. They were just so interesting. And I think that it helped her think, and it helped her deal with emotions of maybe a family member or friend who's on the phone and is stressed. And she was able to cope better. And what are your thoughts about that, about this activity? What are your thoughts about it?
It definitely helps you shut down and ignite different parts of your brain. It's like, I just read about this study. For years, I've been somebody who does my best writing in a coffee shop with this sort of loud background noise. And I now have an app that does that, plays it for me. I have different sounds for different activities. And so my coffee shop sounds is for when I'm doing a very specific kind of writing. And I read this study that explained it. I was like, oh, no wonder. It actually, having to tune out all of that kind of background noise actually turns on parts of your brain that help you focus, but it's actually part of flow. It helps you engage in flow. So you actually really are more creative.
Other people have told me that they like to listen to music in order to write, authors that I know. I can't do that at all because I'm a musician. If I listen to the music, I start figuring out what the notes are. I see my fingers playing it. I know what the score is. I understand the music and I'm just really into that, and I can't write. But I do listen to music if I'm drawing, or I listen to nature sounds when I'm writing. That doesn't bother me so much. Thank you.
I don't have that, but I know what you mean. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Like this one was more like a list poem, but these are things that were, important. And in fact, I think I have an example of how you can really turn something into a poem here. Let me see if I can find this one. Go back. Whoop. Nope. This is an actual poem using blackout poetry. So you take a magazine or whatever book, and you black out and you actually find a poem. And I have several processes we go through to try. And this was actually from an article in Time magazine about opioid use. So it's kind of a dark, article. So the poem is a little bit heavy, but it's pretty interesting. And what I've done with teenagers is use song lyrics. So you bring in some of your favorite song lyrics and we create our own art, our own expression.
I love that. I've done that with my students as well. And it's so much fun and so creative, but I forgot to do it just for fun for myself. And I love you talking about this as a way for us to open ourselves up to be more expressive if we're blocked. This is a great technique.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Examples just from my art journal. There's the background. This is this is autonomy. Again, with my values. And this is an example of just taking everyday items, Trader Joe's bag, and I turn it into an art journal. And then I paint inside it. This is a little cut up page from a dictionary. And I made a little mini poem out of it.
I just love all of this. This is so much fun. I wish that I could just hang out with you all day and be creative and have fun and do all this.
And that would be so fun.
So Kaecey, this has been so great. And I think you've helped a lot of people get some ideas of how to do some exercises if they're blocked, how to get unblocked. Even if we have some people that are musicians, these creative exercises work for all of the expressive arts or dancers or whatever you are. These exercises, and I know often when I'm blocked with music, I'll do an art exercise because I can't. My mind just won't write the music, but I do an art exercise and it just frees me up to then hear the melody and write the song. So yeah, these are so great. We only have a little bit of time left, so I would love at this time for you to read a poem, one of your poems for us. That would just be a great way to end this interview.
So I will share, the first one is called Burying the Girl. And this poem has been simmering for a while. When I was a teenager, one of my sisters had cancer, and unfortunately lost her battle with cancer. She was 16, I was 17 at the time. And the memory of the funeral and things like that really stuck with me. And so recently I was able to write a poem about it that I really felt sort of captured my feelings at the time. And I think it had to do with COVID and having this sort of people losing people and things like that.
Yeah.
Burying the Girl. As the machine groans the casket into the ground, he sneaks a cigarette, a cupped hand, a quick inhale, turning with the wind to blow the smoke away. It works a slow dance over the open grave. I catch his eye and he freezes, then shrugs as if to say, "It's all too much. This is the best I can do." With my eyes shut, I too inhale, to breathe in the fading vapors and hold the remnants in the caverns of my chest. That's that one.
Oh my gosh. The imagery, the rhythm of the words, it's just so powerfully emotional.
Very emotional, yeah.
Your phrasing about describing the smoke as a slow dancing over the grave and holding the remnants in the caverns of your chest. It reminds me of, this has been a tough time. This past year, we had several family members pass and friends. And when you're saying breathing that in, it reminds me of breathing in the memories and holding them. And that's what we have to do. So thank you for that. It's a good poem. It really triggers emotions about life lost. Thank you.
This other poem that I wrote this fall is called A Shadow. And this was an exercise that I do, that I've taught in workshops. It can be just a brainstorming exercise, or it can lead to something. And this poem actually placed in a contest recently. I believe it's honorable mention. But it was something that just came out of a brainstorming exercise. And it's this idea of using one word and contrasting it and having this sort of juxtaposition. So I had picked randomly, I do random word picks, a shadow. And so this poem, this is what evolved from that exercise, a shadow. Something both there and not there, an interruption of light, an echo, silent, a place to hide, store secrets, escape. I had a cat named Shadow once, not silent. That cat could talk, complain, though he did manage to hide away every night when mother called him in. He ran into the street when I was 7. We found his tail a block away. In a dream, a man with hands and a face I cannot see through the smudges clinging to him in ebonies and grays told me you were a shadow. Now, something both there and not there, an interruption of life, an echo, silent. When I woke, I could still see the outline of where the man stood. Hands on my shoulders, maybe, hot breath on my face, something both there and not there.
Thank you. Oh, that's a good one. The shadow. I that triggered something in me, because I recently took some things that I had pushed into the shadows of my life and brought them out into the light. And that's so important to do that. And so, yeah, I can relate to this poem as well. Thank you so much. And I noticed that your poems are not hiding in the shadows. They're bringing some deep, darker emotions out. And before we started, you told me, you said, I don't know if I should share these poems, Jean, because they're kind of dark, or they're kind of not like happy, perky fairies and birdies and that kind of poem, you know. So you asked me that, and I said, of course, go for it, share it. So I feel that it's very important and very valuable. Could you share with others the benefit of using the expressive arts to describe something that maybe is not all lovey-dovey, something painful? What is the benefit for you as the artist, and the benefit for the person that is receiving your art?
I think that perhaps I'm able to be more happy and balanced in myself, because I get it out. Like I said before, you know, that we have that emotional sort of push out, and that's how I work through some of these things through writing. And again, not all of my poetry is that way, but much of it is. And in fact, I'm currently working on a book called Sleeping with Demons, a poetry book that is all about sort of this struggle with the dark side of ourselves and the dark side of things that happen in the world. And I think that for me, poetry offers a way to, you know, you start with these really big emotions, and then you whittle them down into something manageable. And instead of having to record exactly what happened, you capture that emotional resonance, what's left of it, with the meaning for you. And it helps me make meaning of these things. And I think poetry for me is an iterative process. I do it over and over and over. And when you do that, you grow. It's like any practice. It could be a spiritual practice. It could be anything where you are opening yourself up and giving. You're not thinking, you're just doing it over and over, and the results can be astounding.
Well, Kaecey, this has been so much fun. I really don't want to stop. I loved every minute of it, but it's time to stop. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and sharing this, all of your talents with us today. The visual art, the poetry, special tips and techniques for when you're blocked with your creative flow. It's just all been a huge gift. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And we are kindred spirits. And I look forward to continuing that relationship with you, Kaecey. Thank you so much.
I feel the same. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you next time.